I'm about to call Pat Goodman, who has been in the kitesurfing industry for over 2 decades. He is the kite designer of Cabrinha, and such an amazing human being with lots of epic kiteboarding products to his name. And with all the latest Cabrinha products releasing, such as the Nitro, Apex, and also the Moto X design works, I just want to get the intel straight from the source. So let's pick Pat Goodman's brain about the latest products and also hear a little bit more about his journey, his life journey, his kite designing journey. And I think it's going to be quite interesting. So let's dive into this. All right, good day, Pat. So good to see you on FaceTime. How are you?
Yeah, it's been a while, huh? I can't remember the last time I actually was in the same beach with you. I think it must have been in Maui a few years back, but
many years ago.
Many years ago. It's been a while.
Exactly.
For sure.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us.
No worries. It's my pleasure.
Nice one. Yeah, we've seen Cabrinha launching things left, right, center, and I thought better to come straight to the source.
Thanks. Yeah, they've been pretty active with projects since I came back. So it's exciting and challenging and a lot of work all at the same time. It's good.
Nice. Sounds like life.
Yeah. I'm stoked because there's familiar faces and there's new faces and a bunch of new direction, new materials, all sorts of cool stuff going on.
Yeah, so I guess lots to talk about in this interview. And we met, I think, only a few times, maybe 2 times. But we never really went deep and really got to know each other. So it's a pleasure to dive a little bit deeper with you and to learn more about you as well. So
I'm a pretty behind the scenes kind of guy. I don't really go too much for the what is it I'm looking for?
The glitter and glamour of the scene.
Social media at all. I'm pretty recluse.
Nice. I wish I could say the same. No, I think we all have our strength, right?
Knows who you are, that's for sure.
Yeah, oopsie daisy. No, so it's a pleasure to find a little bit more about your journey and like how did you actually fall into the world of sports? Like where did you grow up? What were you like when you were a kid?
You sure you're ready for this? It's a pretty long story.
Yeah,
I grew up on Oahu in Hawaii Kai in Hawaii, and I was pretty active. My first sport when I was maybe 12 years old was surfing, and I can't believe my mom let me do this, but we used to have to walk across this reef and paddle out for like more than the distance, like the paddle out to Kanaha, away from the shore with direct offshore winds in this place that's right next to a channel that's kind of notoriously sharky, and this is where I learned how to surf, and it was pretty crazy when I look at it now, but
wow.
Peeling skin everywhere. It was just crazy. And then, as I went to school in Hawaii for the most part, and I later got involved in motorcycles. I did a lot of motocross, a few road bikes, and I also got into racing go-karts for a while. And these were clutch carts back in the day. They weren't shifter carts. Which later on in life, I actually got back into it with shifter carts, with 125cc shifter carts, which was super cool and super fast, like hairball fast. And and then I kind of have a history of all sorts of fast and dangerous things. I flew hang gliders for 10 years because one of the best places for hang gliding in the world are right at Makapu'u in Oahu, and that's the road to the top of the hill. There's like 5 minutes from my house. So
wow.
Got into that, and then and then I started doing modifications on hang gliders to kind of improve performance, and started making my own cocoon harnesses with internal parachute pockets, and learned how to sew, basically. And it was a funny story. My mom said, "Hey, my friend's son's doing this new sport called windsurfing. You should check it out. Maybe it's a good niche for you, And I just quit my job. I was in California at the time. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna leave California and go back to Hawaii. I'm gonna make windsurf shells. I'd never even seen one before. It was pretty funny. And I ended up doing that. It was really funny. I watched it a few times in Kailua, and I was completely bored with it because it wasn't very windy. And then a storm came through, and it was windy, and I saw what these guys were doing when it got strong. And I was like, hey, this looks really sick, you know. So right away, I kind of took what I had learned from hang gliding and how they had evolved and stuff. And I was like, well, these windsurf sails look all wrong. You know, they should have battens and a bigger head and in shape, and you know, we can do better than this. So I started making some sails from scratch, and the rest is kind of history. I started a small windsurf brand on Oahu and realized that I didn't want to be there anymore because there's not enough wind. So I moved to Maui, started my own deal, did custom windsurf sails under my own label for several years, and then I ran into Phil Gain, and he actually hooked me up with Gastra, and I started doing stuff for Gastra. Yeah, I worked for them for 9 years.
Wow.
And then, and then after Gastra, I ended up leaving Gastra and going to Neil Pride. And at that time, which is a really interesting story, because at the design center for Neil Pride was in Makawao in Maui, and Neil Pride started Cabrinha together with Pete, and then they made the Cabrinha offices. They rented a room right next to the design center there, and they broke out the wall, and we were now sharing space with the Cabrinha team, you know, with Pete and he had a girl in the office and stuff, and you know, Pete and I go way back because he worked for Gastra at the time that I was there as well, you know, so we have a business and personal relationship for many, many years. You know? He's like, hey, you think you could design kites? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not, you know? And then I realized I had no clue at the time what was going on. And it's pretty funny. We brought on a guy to be a consultant, and he had some software, and it wasn't really user-friendly and stuff. And we were working together. And after, you know, maybe about a year of that, I was telling Pete, you know, Dad, if we had software, I could do this myself because I'm telling this other guy what to do anyway, you know? He's basically just my set of hands on the keyboard. I just didn't have the 3D modeling skills to do it, you know? So, yeah, I've been working along with the programmer with the software for the kite designs. And, yeah, I've been pretty much involved all the way from the very beginning. So it's pretty cool watching the sport evolve and watching the software evolve and the materials. And as this all evolves, it all has to kind of sync together to work. So, yeah, it's been super.
Wow. Yeah, so cool to hear that story of you back in the day and with Pete already on Maui, just like really, yeah, in the inceptions of the sports, basically, trying to figure it all out, right?
Yeah, it was crazy, you know, and they didn't have a lot of kites around, which is funny. And I was like, oh, I got to learn how to do this. So I met this guy from Advance. Remember Advance Kites? Yeah. Mickey.
Okay, I don't know.
And basically, he tutored me and got me started kiting on 2-line ram air kites. You know.
Which year was that? 97.
2001. No, 2002.
Oh wow. Okay, yeah, I got started on 2-line kites right then as well.
Yeah, well, those were two. That was my only experience with it. You know.
Wow.
But so the first. This is actually quite funny. The first kite that I got was a Nitro, actually, 4-line kite, and I was flying a 6-meter. And my first attempt to fly it, I've never flown a 4-line kite before in my life, you know. And you know how gusty it is at Kite Beach, right? Sometimes when the wind is kind of east, and the kite overflies and it falls out of the sky behind me, and it goes blowing past me, you know, and the lines are tangling in my board and everything, and I was just like, oh shit, and then it gets out to the edge into the wind, and boom, it launches, and it takes off. My board goes with it into the sky, and then I have an ankle leash, or some sort of leash on my, I guess just a wrist leash, but it yanked me out of the water too. So first the board went flying, then I went flying. I was just thinking, oh yeah, okay, this is a lot of fun.
Classic. I remember that as well. The kite just falling behind you and just like scared.
Oh, it's funny. Like, people were like clapping when I got back in. You know, it's
what a
so
show.
Funny.
Survival.
Yeah. I mean, we've all been there and had that, but yeah, it was pretty interesting. But
Nice.
I finally did get the hang of it and was really enjoying it. And I got to work with a lot of really cool people along the way.
Wicked.
And a lot of people. I was surrounded by good guys, you know, Elliot LeBeau and all these guys that were Lou Wyman. And there's just so many people at Beach, and they were all so willing to help, you know. It was really great.
Yeah, that's wicked.
Lou Wyman set up a bar. Because in those days, you know, the bars were disassembled, you know. You just got a box of parts and you had to put it together yourself. And he showed me how to check the lines on a 4-line kite and stuff. And I think nobody even knows that anymore.
No, for sure. People don't even know how to set it up. They make it way too easy. You don't have to assemble everything. Just rip off the tags.
Their box oversheeted by 5 or 10 centimeters all day long, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, people don't even know how to power or tune their kites these days. I think it's pretty funny, like, and scary.
Exactly. One thing, and that's that if they're overpowered, they pull the trim strap. That's all they know.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's pretty cool to hear that you're into racing as well, and just always these fast things and flying stuff, and yeah, with your engineering brain. What were some of the initial challenges of transferring from making hang gliders to windsurf sails and then to kite surfing with the software that was available or that you guys were actually creating yourselves?
Yeah, you know, a lot changed during the time that I was doing this. You know, when I did the hang glider stuff, it was all just done by hand, and then with no software. And then also windsurfing was like that for many, many years too. We had Mylar patterns that we would cut and make as the templates, and then if we were going to do it for production, it would get digitized back into the computer. This was before there was any software. And then as the started to be some design software out there for windsurfing, very, very few, and they were really bad. But basically, Gastra, you know, was tired of digitizing stuff, and they said, you know, if you don't learn how to design on computer, you're going to get outdated, and we'll find somebody who can, basically. So I dropped everything. I learned how to use a computer, self-taught. Never went to school with that. They didn't have computers when I was in high school. You know, so that was a pretty big transition already there. But I think the main thing, transitioning to kites was quite a bit different because there's so much, the software is so much better. So you have so much more control over every parameter of the kite. So you really do have this powerful tool, you know. But the main thing I think that's important is that I've known how to make wings from flexible materials and put them into a mass production environment. I've been doing this my whole life, basically. And so this is where I think that overall, that all of that previous experience with windsurfing and stuff has really helped in the kite surfing, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, you've always been about performance and racing, and then I think your most famous product has definitely been the Switchblade, which was like definitely a revolutionary product at that time, and it's still going strong. What was some of the initial like inspirations to come up with a kite like that?
Well, you know, the bow kite thing from the very beginning, from the get go. You know, we got some samples and we tried them. We got some samples from Bruno Legano, and we all rode them. We're all riding sea kites and stuff. We're just like, wow, this thing's just such a heavy pig. You know, who would like this thing? You know, and Pete wrote it for the first time. He came in and said, "This kite's going to change the world." I was like, "What?" He goes, "I would send my daughter out on this kite, teaching her how to kite surf. This is going to change the game." And he nailed it, you know. And so we adopted the design and we morphed it into what we wanted. And then we spent a ton of time on the vibratos. And even with the crossbow, we were able to get it to be reasonably comfortable in the hands, and even with the 2-to-1 pulley bar that we had. And, you know, it just was such a success. But there were still people saying, "Oh, I don't want to deal with the pulley bar. You know, can't you do something with a direct control system and stuff?" And we wanted to, they had 7 struts in the beginning, you know, it was just, you know, it was a complex, expensive, complicated thing, you know, and it was fun to fly for sure. It was way different than house, but, and very high performance for its day. So we decided, you know, let's take a stab at reducing some weight and reducing some struts, and let's get this thing to fly. Let's work on the broadline. Let's get this thing to fly and still have the same depower characteristics, where we called it the depower on demand, where you could let go of the bar and the kite would no longer be able to fly. You it wouldn't stop pulling completely, but it would drop out of the sky. And so we put some time into it, and we came out with the Switchblade just following the crossbow not too long later. And everybody thinks the crossbow was the thing that really sold like crazy in the beginning, but actually, even that very first year, the Switchblade outsold the crossbow.
Yeah, I mean, I think the crossbow was more for people to get used to the concept and and then the year after, the Switchblade was like the evolution of the crossbow. And
and the crossbow went on for several years, and it was a good kite for sure, and it was getting better. But times are changing, and people definitely got tired of the 2-to-1 pulley bar because it's just people were starting to strive for lighter bar pressure, basically, even in those days. And because like the sea kites and stuff, they had super light bar pressure, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So we started, and it's been going ever since now, and that's a long time now. I don't know if Ken Winter would argue with this with the Rebel, but with the Switchblade, it might be the most produced one model of kites since the beginning of kitesurfing, which is I take quite pride in saying that sometimes.
100%.
The Rebel pretty damn close, if it's not more, but it's still Switchblade. This is an icon, really, and it's still even now. We make all these other kite models, and all of them have their own discipline, and they're quite good and quite versatile and stuff. But the instructors still say you just can't go wrong if you get a Switchblade.
100%. Such a versatile kite for everyone.
So it's still going, and actually I'm working on a new one right now, and it just keeps getting better and better too. It's really, as the sport evolves, once I start learning new techniques about making the kites cleaner, and this is what it's really all about is getting the kite in the sky to be identical to the kite in the 3D model. And this is what most people don't realize. You can make a kite fly really easy from the software, but to make it be the same as what you have in the model takes a long time to dial that in. And once you do have that dialed in, then you can actually track your progress, and you can understand what's happening. You can actually start using profile analysis software, and you can do all this stuff, but it has to match. You can't, in the old days, we used these crazy profiles that were super full in the front, and they were actually non-tangent to the front of the leading edge because there was no way to control the elongation that we're getting from the dacrons and stuff. So we tricked it into having more material by basically just doing this really obscure, weird, soft profiles, And I hated this concept because I wanted to know if I do want to use some profile analysis software, I can't use that because what you get in flight wasn't maintaining that shape. It would go in flight, and you'd have a totally different profile. Right?
100%. It twists and moves around. Does the software also simulate wind? Like, do you blow wind through it in the software?
No, it doesn't. And this is kind of an arguable subject, but we've tried several times to work with some students that want to do flow analysis on the kites. And once I really sit down with them and show them how many things change and how little, how even the smallest bridle tension distribution can change the arc shape. There's just so many things going on as you sheet in the center of the profile comes to a higher tack angle and the tips rotate in, but they also try to fly outward. Older kites with less bridling and stuff. So there's all sorts of stuff going on. And at the end of the day, the guy's like, yeah, you're right. It would be difficult to choose which parameter to set this at to kind of get a good view of what's going on aerodynamically on these things.
100%, and even changing like 1 or 2 millimeters can change the whole feel and everything. So it's just basically creating the prototype and then taking it out in the real wind and testing it for real. Right?
I mean, a good example is with a fifth line kite. You just look up at it, and if there's no tension on it, it looks a certain way, and you start pulling on the fifth line, and all of a sudden, as it flattens out the center, you'll see that the tips start to sheet in, and the center profile starts to go to a lower attack angle, and all sorts of stuff's going on there, And that sort of stuff's going on with the bridles as well. And so what would you use as your model in to determine that it's good or not? Because it's changing. It's a living, breathing animal,
Exactly, yeah. Living organism.
I mean, it's pretty locked into place now with the bridles we're doing now, but it still has to be loose and alive, and a lot goes on in a turn too. So.
And for kiters that maybe not so familiar with kite design, how does it actually work? Like, what do you start with, and what is some of the final tweaks that you can do?
Well, in the kind of environment that I work in, because I'm working for a company that is manufacturing these toys, advanced toys, basically, that there's a product brief is created. We have an idea of which kites we're going to build and what their target user is, what the target performance is, what the genre is, because we make a lot of different kites. So it goes through a process, right? And it goes through an internal process, and we kind of come up with the target of what we want to do. Or if it's an older kite that we're going to upgrade, then we go through all of the feedback that we've had over the years, even from the dealers and the centers and the kite schools and stuff, and we get a direction where the places we need to make improvements and the areas where we don't, So it is an evolution as we go along. The big breakthroughs are pretty few and far a space from each other. They do happen from time to time, like the introduction of the bow kite, for instance, and the kite. But it's we don't just try a bunch of crazy stuff. However, there's been quite a few kites that I just had in my mind. It's like, hey, I really should try this. I had this on my mind for quite a while. And actually, the IDS bridle was one of the things I started putting more pulleys in the bridle. And then I realized that, hey, the kite can flip upside down here, and fly without pulling. It's almost like a fifth line setup, And we just stumbled into that. And Pete's like, oh, that's going into every kite. We've got our own proprietary depower system, and it was quite popular for quite some time, but like the Drifter was a good one. Pete was one of the first to really push hard to have a dedicated wave kite, because he's a surfboard guy.
He loves the waves,
and
so the Drifter is it.
What's that?
The Drifter is it for Pete on the waves. It's one of the best wave kites out there, right?
Yeah, and that concept of a kite that has slack line drift, or when you're riding waves, that kind of got created, and that's where the name came from, actually. And it's a common used word and language these days, is that it's got to have good drift. And Pete really kind of did create this genre. I have to give him back for that, for sure. Yeah. But some of those models make some change, and this year's actually no exception. I can't really go into it too much because it's actually next year's stuff. Right. But I had some ideas about a way to improve the Drifter, and I applied this into a couple of prototypes, and we were stunned that this is a good progress, like a pretty big step in a good direction. So these kind of things, they do happen. I've been really lucky to have 100% freedom to prototype anything I want for 17 years, 20 years.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I mean, thousands of prototypes. Some are crap and some are really good, but you got to try it.
And otherwise you don't learn, right? So if it's in your mind and you can put it out there, then you always learn bits and pieces, and that's how products come together, right? I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. So we got a little off track here, but basically after the concept is created or the direction of the kite, then we start the prototyping process, and we'll build some prototypes. Then they come to me and my team here. These days, they come here to Taiwan, and I work with my team here to get a general understanding of whether or not this is going in the right direction or not. And as soon as that is happening, then we either send those around to other people, or we make the next generation, and then we make in duplicates or triplicates, and they go to different locations. And then we get the feedback and work on the bridles and stuff kind of remotely, with social media, with like FaceTime and everything is pretty easy to work from abroad. It does require a few more samples sometimes because we have to send them around to different groups, but we're a little bit disconnected. I'm in Taiwan, and the Phil and the test team are in Hawaii, and then all of the administration, everything's in Miami, and then the factory in China. But I'm close to China. This was originally how it started. I was looking for a place windy that was close to China. I made a trip there. I didn't have to go back to Hawaii just to go take a look at a kite. Right?
Amazing. So Taiwan it is. How do you like your time there?
I've been here for more than 15 years already. So
oh wow,
it's nice.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's different. It's not like people always laugh. How could you leave Hawaii and go to Taiwan? There's 23 million people here. It's about the same landmass as the Hawaiian Islands, which has a total of 1 million.
Exactly.
And but windy place. It's like a machine. It's probably on par with Maui for the number of kiteable days in a year.
A little less gusty than Maui?
What's that?
Is it a little less gusty than Maui?
No, not always.
Unfortunately.
It's got the same thing. The east wind is the same problem. When it's east wind, it's just crappy and offshore and gusty, But I'm on the west coast, which is, it's kind of landlocked to mainland China, so we don't get a lot of waves. We only get wind swell, which gets pretty big. But East Coast really is amazing, but it only works in the winter when we have the northeasterly winds. Whereas the west coast works all year round because we get northeasterlies in the winter and we get southwesterlies in the summer.
Yeah, but you get to spend quite some time on the water, right? So it's like, would you say 50-50 office and designing and testing prototypes, or 60-40?
I would say probably not 50-50, but I would say 60-40. 40% of the time I'm at the beach with the guys working on stuff. And, I've got a team that's at a phone call away, and we're rendezvous there. And a chat with Phil afterwards, and we talk about everything. And, I get a lot of beach time. Yeah.
Nice. And you've been working closely together with a lot of pro riders in your time. How valuable is the pro rider feedback to create a kite for the average Joe mainly, right?
The feedback from the pro riders is super important in a lot of ways, especially when you're working on a high performance kite. It's impossible to do it without their feedback. But their feedback isn't always necessarily ideal for consumer product.
It doesn't double loop. It needs to be faster.
Even just with the bigger kites is also, in relation to what the consumer actually uses, the wind range that the kite actually is designed to be used for, and that the average consumer will use this. Even the high end consumer is definitely not the same as what Stino and you go out and ride. But the feedback's super valuable, and and watching them ride is probably I learned more than anything, because when they come in and tell me that it's not catching me properly on a kite loop or something, it won't fly uphill, or I don't have enough D-power or whatever, I can see it when they're riding. Yeah. And when they come in with feedback that matches with what I was watching on the water, then I know that
how to make the tweaks and get it going.
Yeah. And work on this, and sometimes on the older brothers, especially where they're quite simple, we do a lot of knot tying and changes right on the beach and stuff. And these guys are amazed how much one overhand and one figure eight knot will make in the difference in the kite. It's like from catching them on kite loops to it's over sending the kite, and they're throwing their timing off and they can't land it because it's gone too far back.
Yeah, wow, that's crazy. But yeah, I love to see that Cabrinha is really taking the time, of course, and you to spend that time with the riders, because I've been working with with many brands before, and it's always so hard to get time to spend with the designer on the beach. That's where the magic happens together, right? Like seeing, talking, and working together on this. And yeah, I think it's very rare in a company that do take the time for this. So well done on that.
It's tough though, because we're all scattered around the world, so it involves quite a bit of traveling, But often what happens, we find a central location and then we'll meet up, like in Maui or something, and compromise and travel to this. But there's times when I follow these guys around to Cape Town and places like this.
Yeah, wicked.
I haven't kited in Holland yet, but I want to.
You're always welcome here. Definitely let us know when you're over in Europe, and we can have a nice session on the beach. Definitely try some of the latest. Speaking of the latest, we've been getting nice supply from new Cabrinha gear, and we watched some awesome launch campaigns. Obviously the Nitro Apex, and then the Moto X Design Works, which I've landed my first double loop on. So thanks for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, please tell me a little bit more about the Apex material, the Nitro Apex, and also the Design Works kite. Like, what is the story?
Okay, well, the leading edge materials have kind of evolved quite a bit over the last few years. The Apex material is actually a different type of manufacturing process. It's still a Dacron 100% polyester material, but it was designed to be used on an inflated column section like we have in the kites, and so the focus was put on to have really low elongation in the direction of the column on the kite, so that you don't have to use as much compensation in the design to get it clean to allow for all this elongation that takes place, you know. But the main thing that's special about the material is that instead of historically the Dacrons have been, the woven material has been dipped through a bath of melamine-based solvent. It's not a coating. It's like a resin, a melamine resin, and they completely dip the material through it, and it comes up and goes through a series of rollers. It squeegees out the percentage of it into, and it gets dried in there. And melamine's hard. It's like Formica, you know. It's a plastic, and this is what they use to make the material stable. They try to keep the bias elongation under control and everything. The manufacturer of this material actually came up with a process where they actually coat the material like a canopy material, which has got a polyurethane-based coating, and it's actually coated rather. They don't dip it completely into it. They actually squeegee it on, let's say, and it's at a viscosity that's thin enough to penetrate through completely to the other side. So it does get fully saturated with this resin, but the resin is much more resilient. Okay, so this gives this Dacron, it's quite soft on the bias, which really helps the steering because we're twisting the kites to get them to turn as well, right? So it really did make a huge breakthrough in how kites feel. You know, this material is just wonderful. In the beginning, there was an earlier version of it, and it was a little bit lighter, but it had it's a really interesting design because it's got heavier yarns and all sorts of stuff. But there was some kind of point loading. There's fewer yarns, and they were under such stress that there could actually, if you lost the strength of one yarn, you'd have a catastrophic failure, and you'd have a burst in the leading edge. Right? So we kind of avoided the first generation of this material, but it evolved now. They used larger yarns, and they perfected the procedure a little bit, and now this material is way stronger than the earlier generation of it. And we said, hey, we got to use this stuff. So, you know, we put it in the Nitro, and then we started prototyping in the background all the kites, and realized, hey, we better put this in more kites because it changes the kites. They all turn better. They all just feel better overall. You know, so
wicked. So when there's a Cabrinha product with Apex behind it, that means that you use the stiffer kind of treated Dacron.
Yeah, this is with the marketing. It just sounds like a pretty name, but basically, anything with the Apex logo is using this material.
Okay, got it. And the design works is more the Aluula material.
What's that?
The design works name. That's when you use the Aluula material.
Yeah, for the time being, but it's not an Apex kite, right? Because it's not using that material.
Exactly,
and the Apex also construction, also we call it, because some of those kites in the other models have different bridle materials. They have a thinner bridle out of Dyneema line, you know, on the Apex kites. So everything about it, the construction is a little bit more advanced, let's say.
Yeah.
But yeah, but now we're using it in quite a bit of kites. Currently it's in the Moto X. It's in the Moto XL because this is a really important kite to get it to turn. You know, and it turns. I was just testing the new ones last week, and wow, it was actually pretty impressive. I haven't ridden a 17 for a long time.
So what size are the XL? It comes in a 15 and a 17, or just a 17?
13, 17.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. Wicked. Yeah, I still have to get my hands on one because I love riding the little bit lighter winds and still get some good power, do some floaty jumps.
You wouldn't really own two. It's not like you'd own a 13 or 17. I think you would choose a kite suitable for you and your light wind conditions based on your skill level and your body weight, and then you would have one. And we have different sizes so that the bigger guy can have the same result.
Exactly. Amazing. So, yeah, I saw Stino obviously in Tarifa when he helped us with that Nitro Apex, and we had some massive jumps on it. Like I really love the feel on these Nitro Apex kites when I'm really lit. but in the little bit of lighter conditions, I was not feeling too much power in there. But then I switched to Stino's Design Works kite, the Moto X Design Works, and that was so fast. It had good lift, and it just felt so great.
Yeah.
And now Stino, he became third.
Was that?
Stino just became third in Gran Canaria on the GKA.
That was a really nice set of news to hear. I mean, it's just, he's been working and training so hard. It's just, I'm so happy for him, to get this great result. And he's just such a smooth rider, eh? It's just just makes it look so easy. But,
definitely.
Man, yeah, no, congratulations on that for sure. And, but it's perfect timing with launching the new kite. That was kind of cool.
100%. And it's been so cool to see Stino come up into the scene and with the SpaceX team, and then just to see him focus purely on his riding and just in Cape Town, in Holland, no matter, he just was always scoring the strong wins. Really has this unique style of performing his moves with so much invertness, so much style, and it's just it's just frothy.
I think you guys told me that when you were riding the Nitros, that you actually ended up putting them on the B setting on the wingtips and were liking them better because they gave you more bar pressure and more feedback.
Yeah, that's something I really liked. On the A setting, I didn't feel like it was reacting on my down loops too good. So then I put it on the B setting, and then it was catching me much better.
It's just amazing. People don't even try that, It's not for everyone, but it is for everyone to try, and they should, and I recommend that you do, because there is something to it. It definitely gets heavier, but you get a better feel for the kite.
100%.
And it's really arguable. Most people think that kites are faster on the A setting, but I wouldn't say that it's faster. I think they actually are just as fast. They just have more bar feedback and steering impulse, so it feels like they're slower. But actually, when you lay into it, they'll actually turn as tight or tighter. Actually,
100%.
So,
yeah, and I was gonna say, if you do a long ass downwind in Brazil, for example, then you maybe put it on the A setting, so it's a little bit lighter and easier. But if you go for a powerful session, then I really prefer the B setting. So I wish more people would know and try this out as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's interesting to hear that you felt that the some of the Nitros could use more power. I'll look into that.
Yeah, especially in the bit of a lighter winds. I mean, I've only tried the 9 in a bit underpowered, so testing the low end on that.
Actually, I've heard that for sure. That they're definitely not a light wind kite. I mean, that kite likes to be ridden pretty lit, even in the larger sizes. It's definitely not a switchblade. There's no question.
100%.
Ever, So.
Good point.
Yeah. Actually, did you ever get to ride any switchblades? Because they're actually better than most people think, and most people just kind of ignore it on the high end side, but they shouldn't.
I remember my first time on the crossbow. I was working with Slingshot at the time, and they gave me the crossbow for the first time, and then I was like, boom! I just went up, and I flew 100 meters far, and then whoop in the gorge. And I was like, whoa! I never had such a massive jump so easy, But that was back in 2008 or 2009. But I haven't ridden a switchblade lately, so I should definitely try one.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think you should. And I have a feeling that some of the small ones are going to be quite good for big kite loops.
And how are they in light winds? Will they give me a little bit more power?
They definitely have a different set of profiles that are way more powerful.
Nice. What size for light wind? The 13 still works good?
For light wind, I would recommend the Moto XL because it's got yet another profile set that are way more powerful. And I call those, they kind of evolved from the Contra series that we had before, but taking some of the DNA from the Moto X. It's not just a big Moto X. It's been morphed in between Moto X and Contra, let's say.
Okay, that's good.
But I always used to say that the Contra even though it was kind of a beast, it was always the last man standing. But people would say, my so-and-so kite turns better than the Contra, and he's walking up the beach and the guy on the Contra is still riding around.
Still cruising.
Yeah. It is a kind of a beast, but man, did they if you jump on the stuff, it's like jumping a helium balloon, They just once you get the wing loading down so much, they just float crazy. Yeah.
That's what we want. Yeah, I've also got.
I would say that the 13 or 15 Moto XL is the one. 17 is too big for somebody your size.
Nice. Yeah, I think I ordered the 13, but I haven't sent it down yet. I will chase them. I will chase them up because I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, over the years I've also have so many Cabrinha moments in my head, whether that was Susie May from back in the day, or Martin Vary, or Andre Philip. It's been part of the kitesurfing world for so long, and to still see Cabrinha going strong now, and also with the new owners. What's holding the future for Cabrinha in the next couple of years?
Well, that was actually a big reason for my comeback to Cabrinha, was that the company changed hands, got kind of away from the corporate kind of background that Neil Pride has and stuff, and the Cabrinha wasn't going to be influenced or handicapped by being a part of the big conglomeration that was always shuffling things around, and that this new investment group, which is headed by John Modica, which is just he was one of the team riders back in the day. He was an amazing kiter, and I've known him since he was 16 years old. And he bought the company and had a vision of how we can do it correctly, and make it a still a family feeling business, but really professionally run and improve on materials and really take it to the next level. And he's a great guy. And when he bought the company, he just started calling me all the time. He's like, "You got to come back." He goes, "I just, you are the switchblade. You just got." And he hassled me for like a year, and I started thinking about it. The other side of the ship was getting a little bit corporate for me as well. I was like, this is kind of what I was after, and so I ended up coming back, and it's really it's the same size company, but it's not, doesn't have this this black cloud hanging over it that's limiting its potential.
Yeah.
So I think it's great, and there's a great group of guys, and Phil and I are good buddies, and Lars and Dave, and it's cool. It was like that was the biggest thing when I left for those few years, was that the Cabrinha was always like a family to me, and we've been doing it since the beginning, and we watched the whole thing evolve, and there's a connection there that difficult to take with you when you go to another company.
100%. It may sound all peachy on paper, but the energy just needs to be right. And I really feel that Cabrinha has got that energy, whilst it's also not the easiest time for John and the team to take over due to COVID, due to lots of changes in the industry. So, the first few years might be a bit tough, but I believe you guys are in it for the long run. So
it's really coming together now. And we have a bunch of new products that you saw, because I redesigned everything when I came back from the ground up. Basically, there was the Moto it's nothing like the previous Moto. It's an entirely new kite, new profiles, new outline, new tension settings, new everything. It's a completely new kite. And the Drifter got redone completely. It was a project that I was actually working on before I left, and when I came back, I kind of took over where I left off, and I finished this Drifter project that I headed on. And basically everything got redone, switchblade included, and then we introduced Nitro and some of these other things, and now this Moto X design works.
Yeah, nice.
So
that's good to see, man. There's some fresh wind in there, so it's been great to see that, and congrats on all the success with Cabrinha. And
these guys are great. I know you've met John as well, right?
Yeah, definitely. John came to visit us not long ago, and it was good to see him, because I've known him from the World Tour, of course, and been seeing him on a few trips. Still haven't had a proper session with him lately, but hopefully soon.
He's a good guy. I don't know if it's good or bad having the owner of the company be such a high level rider,
He's pushing.
because he comes back oh, we better try this. No, just like, no, you stay out of this. We're running the business. Let the guys run the business, and you run the other.
Yeah. No, that's good. I mean, he's very versatile, right? He rides the surfboard. He also used to ride some wakeboards and the slider parks even. And
he wings. He does it all.
Amazing. You do any
And
winging?
Am I?
Yeah.
I started getting into it when I did some wings for the other brand, and I did develop 2 seasons worth of wings for them, and I was was getting the hang of it, but I just don't feel the love for it. It just hasn't snagged me.
Yeah.
And I really want to, even at that time, I want to put my focus 100% on kites. And
that's what we do.
Yeah, I came back. They wanted Brody to do half the kites, or at least a portion of it. And, I just told him, I said, it just doesn't make sense, because there's to have continuity between 2 designers is really difficult to have, it's almost like 2 different brands, and I'm not saying that there's anything, we all have our own ideas and we have good ideas, both. Brody's an amazing designer, but he needs to do the same thing with the wings. He needs to put 100% dedication into the wings because it's a big enough part of the business now that we can do that. It wasn't shortly before that idea got shut down, and I do all the kites for Cabrinha, and Brody does all the wings.
Yeah.
And I just don't have the time. There's not enough hours in the day to take up another sport for me.
Exactly. 100% focus is good. Let it be on kiteboarding. That looks good on you.
I still do a little bit of skateboarding. That was one of the broken bone sports that I left out of the original list. I was heavy into skateboarding when I was a kid.
That's it.
Still do it a little bit, and just riding some bowls with surf. Once the surf skates came out, I was just like, hey, this is sick, man. It's fun.
Very small part of riders who actually ridden some of that, but
yeah,
it's nice. But Pat, thank you so much for some more insights here on the latest Cabrinha gear and a bit about your journey. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, no worries. I hope you can shorten it down a little bit because we kind of
definitely. There's a lot of cool, interesting bits and pieces in there, so we'll definitely cut it down for some.
Put a quick summary of 20 years of my life. So that's in a nutshell. That's kind of what it is. Yeah.
Exactly. I appreciate it. I think lots of people enjoy listening to that and learning from it. So thanks again.
No, and I appreciate you getting in touch with me. I'm super stoked. I was also quite honored to see you do your first double on the 6. Well, that meant a lot to me. I was like, well, that's pretty sick.
Nice. Yeah, it won't be the last. So more of that.
No, I mean your skill level. I'm sure you could do it on almost all of the brand's kites, but it was still. I was honored that you did it on the Moto.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Beautiful. So let's see how it goes, and there's all sorts of new stuff coming up for next season that I can't obviously get too much into depth with, but I'm some things are evolving really nicely, and I'm quite happy with the stuff I'm working on right now. So I think that every time I think it can't get any better, they just definitely get better and better and better. And it's because we have a team that puts 100% of what they do into the product. So
beautiful. Well, I can't wait. Let's save that one for the next call and the next launch. And wish you lots of wind and happy times, brother.
Okay. Yeah. Nice, Thanks a lot, man. See you later.
You have a good day, man. Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.